Hey everyone, welcome back to the deep dive.
Good to be here.
This is where we sift through a whole stack of sources, articles, research notes to pull out those key insights you really need.
Yeah, the good stuff.
Today we're tackling something, well, pretty extraordinary actually. We're drawing from a really diverse set of sources. We're going to explore two distinct yet deeply interconnected areas, our own personal well-being and maybe the far-reaching future of humanity itself.
That's right. It's about setting the stage, sort of, for how these topics, which seem miles apart, actually give us vital clues for navigating, our daily lives and our collective path forward in this, well, incredibly fast-moving world.
Finding that connection point.
Exactly.
Well,
Where personal choices kind of ripple outwards.
All right, let's unpack our first deep dive then. It's the immediate, pretty personal challenge of work-life balance. And we're looking specifically at the, let's face it, demanding world of scientific research. It's an area where those lines between work and life often just blur completely.
Yeah, they can vanish. And what's fascinating here, or maybe alarming, is what a 2023 Nature survey found.
Oh, yeah.
It showed this kind of self-sabotaging thing happening. A huge number, like 70% of researchers, so they were working over 50 hours a week.
Wow, 70%.
Yeah, and many felt guilty taking time off. It's not just long hours, it's this culture that maybe kind of confuses exhaustion with dedication.
Right, like it's a badge of honor.
Exactly. But the data, well, it screams the opposite, this pace. It directly harms creativity. It increases errors big time.
Errors in research, that's serious.
Absolutely. And sadly, it pushes really talented people out of science altogether.
That's a massive cost, not just for the individuals, but for science itself. So, okay, if you're in that kind of pressure cooker environment, how do you even begin to push back?
Good question.
Our sources point to setting boundaries as like the first practical step.
Makes sense.
This means actually, time blocking, saying, okay, these hours are for deep work lab time, writing, but then fiercely protecting your personal hours for family, exercise, just switching off.
You have to guard that time.
And crucially, it means clear communication, like maybe telling your PI, your lab head, or your team, look, I'm generally offline after 7 p.m. unless it's a real emergency, setting that expectation.
And you're right. Those boundaries aren't just like nice ideas. They're fundamental. They're about managing your energy for the long haul.
To recharge effectively.
Exactly. Without them, that creativity, that focus, it just dries up. Productivity suffers eventually. You just can't sustain it.
Okay, strategy 2. This one, prioritize ruthlessly. I think this is where it gets really interesting. Because it's not just about what you do, it's about what you consciously decide not to do.
Having the courage to say no.
Right. The sources talk about applying the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle.
Yeah, familiar with that.
That idea that like 80% of your results often come from just 20% of your effort. So the hard part is identifying that critical 20%.
Finding the high impact stuff.
Yeah. So if a side project pops up and it doesn't really align with your main research goals, the advice is feel empowered to say no, which sounds way easier than it is, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
So,
But there's real wisdom in protecting your energy for what truly moves the needle in your work and your life, actually.
not spreading yourself too thin.
Exactly. Everything can't be equally important. Learning to say no is, well, it's a skill.
Okay. And the third strategy is building a support system.
Crucial.
Science can feel, I imagine, incredibly isolating sometimes. You're deep in your own research world.
Oh, definitely.
So the sources really push connecting with peers, things like journal clubs, maybe mentorship groups, or even, online communities like on X or other platforms.
Finding your tribe.
But it's not just professional support, right? They also highlight personal support, friends, family, maybe even a therapist as being just as vital for handling that emotional roller coaster, they called it.
Yeah, that's a good description. Because a strong support system, it directly fights that isolation. It gives you an outlet, helps you navigate the ups and downs, reminds you you're not alone. It's resilience fuel, really.
Resilience fuel, I like that. So, okay, pulling these ideas together, what does this all mean for balance? The sources are clear. Balance doesn't mean a perfect 50-50 split every single day. That's a myth, and it can be kind of paralyzing.
Sets you up for failure almost.
Totally. Instead, it's about aiming for a, quote, sustainable rhythm over time. Recognizing that, yes, some points you will lean more towards work, especially with deadlines.
It's about the average, the overall pattern.
Exactly. A sustainable rhythm.
And, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the really powerful insight here is that Taking care of yourself isn't a luxury.
It's not selfish?
Not at all. It's actually necessary for doing great science. It's the sort of unseen engine behind breakthroughs. Without prioritizing it, we're not just burning out individuals, we're potentially stifling the innovation we need.
That's a really important connection. How focusing on individual well-being, especially in tough fields like science, has these broader implications, which actually leads us really nicely into our next deep dive, because we're shifting now from the personal scale to the species level, really, thinking about humanity's future evolution.
Exactly. If we can't sustain ourselves now, how do we navigate what's coming? And this brings us to that grander scale, looking at humanity's potential transformation and the huge ethical questions that come with it.
Big questions.
Which raises an important question right off the bat.
So for our second deep dive, we're jumping into Yuval Noah Harari's book, Homo Deus, A Brief History of Tomorrow.
A fascinating read.
And its central, really bold question, what will humans become?
Yeah. And what's fascinating here is the context Harari sets up. He argues pretty convincingly that humanity's been incredibly successful at tackling the big threats that haunted our ancestors.
Like what?
Things like, mass pandemics, widespread famine, even large-scale wars. We haven't eliminated them, obviously, but we control them to a degree our ancestors couldn't even imagine.
Stuff they used to pray about.
Precisely. For thousands of years, people prayed to gods for help with these things. Today, increasingly, it's science and technology stepping in to provide solutions, or at least mitigation.
Right. And because we've gotten so good at handling those old problems, Harari suggests our goals are shifting massively.
What are the new goals, according to him?
He proposes 3 big ones, almost universal desires now. Immortality, basically conquering death. Happiness, like engineering constant contentment. And finally, achieving godlike powers.
Wow. Immortality, happiness, divinity, those were ambitious.
Understatement, yeah.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, Harari talks about this idea of dataism.
Data.
Yeah, as a potential future belief system. Sort of like a new religion, almost, where the highest value isn't human experience or consciousness, but the flow and processing of information.
So data is God, kind of.
In a way, yeah. In this view, maybe decisions get made or even predicted by artificial intelligence because it processes data better than we do. It's a radical shift in, where authority lies.
Okay, so all this points towards this transformation. From Homo sapiens, wise humans, us, into Homo Deus, human gods.
That's the concept.
It's a powerful phrase. What exactly does he mean by godlike powers, though? Is it like actual omnipotence, flying?
Probably not flying right away. It's more nuanced. It's about the power to, say, redesign life itself through genetic engineering, overcoming our biological limits, maybe even creating new kinds of consciousness.
Okay, that's still pretty godlike.
It is. But, and this is crucial, Harari spends a lot of time on the challenges, the potential downsides. This raises some really important questions. Could AI actually surpass human intelligence so much that we become irrelevant? Or worse?
The Terminator scenario.
Well, maybe not robots with guns, but perhaps economic or intellectual obsolescence. And then there's genetic editing. Will biological upgrades create massive inequality, like different species of humans almost?
That's deeply unsettling.
And could our quest for these powers accidentally lead to new forms of control, maybe new forms of slavery, where algorithms or data dictate our lives in ways we don't even realize?
These are huge ethical minefields.
Absolutely. They're not easy questions.
Right. And Harari himself, he stresses that Homo Deus isn't meant to be a prediction. It's not a crystal ball. He calls it a question paper.
I like that framing.
Yeah, it's not giving answers. It's meant to provoke you, the listener, to really think deeply about the future we're heading towards. It's an invitation to engage, not just sit back and watch.
Exactly. So what does this all mean? It really reinforces the book's core message. We need careful thought about tomorrow. Even though life today is, for many, vastly better than in the past, we can't be complacent. We need to think proactively about where technology and our own desires might take us.
It's a call for conscious direction, isn't it? Not just letting things happen.
Precisely. What values will guide us on this potentially transformative journey?
So, wrapping up this deep dive, you can really see the threads connecting these 2 parts, can't you?
They seem separate at first.
Yeah, our individual struggles, like finding work-life balance in science, and these huge species-level questions about becoming Homo Deus.
Wow.
But how we manage ourselves, how we conduct our science, how we prioritize, It all feeds into those bigger transformations and the ethical choices ahead.
It's all interwoven. The micro affects the macro.
It really is. It's
Yeah.
all part of the same unfolding human story.
Which leaves us, maybe, with a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to chew on.
Go for it.
How do the choices we make right now, today, both in looking after our own well-being, avoiding burnout, and in how we choose to push the boundaries of science? How do those choices shape not just our individual lives, but the actual definition of what it means to be human generations from now?
Wow. That's definitely something to mull over. A huge
Wow.
question.
Indeed.
Well, thank you for joining us on this particularly wide-ranging deep dive today. We really hope it sparks some thinking, and we encourage you to keep exploring these vital topics.
Thanks for listening.